Good morning, good afternoon, good day, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to Across the Arts. I'm your host, Patrick D. McCoy, and I am indeed delighted to be joined today by two-time Grammy Award mezzo-soprano, Jennifer Larmore. Jennifer Larmore is an American mezzo-soprano with a wide-ranging repertoire, having begun with coloratura roles from the Baroque and bel canto, then adding music from the Romantic and contemporary periods. She began her career in opera in Nice in 1986 in a performance of Mozart's La Clemenza di Tito, and went on to sing at virtually every major opera house in the world, including the Metropolitan Opera, La Scala, Paris Opera, Tokyo, the Berlin Deutsche Oper, and London's Covent Garden. Now, you know, I could read all day about Jennifer, but please, without further ado, help me welcome mezzo-soprano, Atlanta born, Jennifer Larmore. Jennifer, good morning, good day, good afternoon to you.
Yes, good day, good afternoon to you, and good morning there, I think.
Yeah, it's a little bit after 11. I am so excited that you are here today. As you and I were talking freely before we got on, this has been a long time coming, but the stars in the line, but it's so ironic that the pandemic aligned it for us. So I'm so grateful that you're here today.
Thank you, Patrick. I'm happy to be here. We tried forever to get this on the books, and finally, your persistence paid off.
Well, thank you. And speaking of the pandemic, I was on your website and I saw that you had quite a few things really in the works. And I always like to start this conversation. I know that people are under the impression that we're out of the pandemic, but we're still kind of in there. But talk to me when the pandemic first started. I know that you were like all of the other musicians trying to find out how they were going to repurpose their projects or their itineraries. Talk to me personally about how the pandemic in the beginning affected you.
Well, I can tell you that I felt like I was in somebody's disaster movie because we were about a week away from premiering Pelléas et Mélisande in Parma. And it was a beautiful production of André Barbe and Renaud Doucet. And I was very excited about doing it, the part of Geneviève. And I love that opera. I think it's so beautiful. And we kept hearing about this mysterious sickness, that was going around. And somebody came into the room where I was getting my makeup on, and they said, "You can't be in here right now. You have to stand outside." So I said, "Oh, okay." No one understood what was going on. But then the disaster movie kicked in, and around 10 o'clock that night, they told us, "You've got to get out of town because this is a red zone." That area of Italy was a red zone. So I called my director and I said, "What's going on? Renaud, we've had this news. What should we do?" And so he said, "Oh, I'm already on the train. So back to Venice. So get out of town now." So we went, and by midnight, it was a red zone. We were in the next town. And then the next day, we drove all the way back to Paris. Now, everything after that, like everyone, it was canceled. So I've got to go on my website and update it because every single thing on there is completely canceled. And I know that a lot of people suffered. I feel very blessed and lucky that I have a nice house and I had money in the bank. So I didn't feel that it was hurting me in that way, but it hurt my heart to see so many of my friends suffering, and I tried to help as much as I could. But as far as the pandemic affecting life as an artist, yeah, it totally did kind of wipe it out for a while for everybody. We had to find other ways to feel positive about what we're doing. We had to try to put a positive spin on the time that we had and not just look at it like something we'd lost, but I tried to look at it as something I gained, time to really plan and teach, which is my passion, and also try to be as helpful and give as much advice as I possibly could to young singers who had about 1 million questions, and rightly so. And my husband and I, after 4 months of being together day in, day out, I looked at him and I said, you know what? I like you. And he said, you know
Oh,
what? I like you too. So we were real surprised to find out that, we could spend 24 hours a day with each other and still have a ton to talk about and have fun together. So the pandemic affected personal life. It affected life as an artist, of course. Everybody's bank account went down, and also the morale. It was hard to keep that up.
I'm glad that you mentioned your passion and zeal for teaching, because I find that during the pandemic, I think a lot of artists who found their place on the stage, they got to teach a little bit more during the pandemic because of Zoom and all the other virtual platforms. Now, I want to go back, because as I mentioned to you, and for those who follow me, when I talk to an artist, I like to give a little background information to the person who may not be exposed to you or know your history. So I want to go back to Atlanta, because you're in the Atlanta boy girl, Southern girl. So I don't feel bad when my Southern accent comes out, because you're from the South as well. So Jennifer, talk to me about Atlanta and the nurture that your hometown gave you in your musical career as you begin. And I would say maybe you're the beginning of your childhood and your interest in music.
Okay, Atlanta for me was a beautiful place to be, because I was really growing up in the heart of the city, down in Moreland Avenue, Southeast Atlanta. And I went to a school that fostered singing and the arts and really encouraged me to go on with that. Of course, I was going to church. I was singing in the choirs. And I think some of the most fun I've ever had is singing in choirs. And I hated having to give that up to become a soloist. I would have made a great choir singer the rest of my life, because I love working with other people. I love the feeling of it. But so, yeah, I was the little kid in class that had the loudest voice. And, those were the days when they would pin little pieces of paper on you, to go home, and your mother would take it off and read it. And it was always something, she said, it was always something about how beautifully I was singing. And so I wanted to be a concert pianist. I wanted to be a dancer. Then when I was 10, I decided I wanted to be a singer because the Met was on tour and my father and mother took all of us there. In fact, they had season tickets to the opera, to the symphony, and they really tried to expose us to all of that, which I'm very grateful for. And every Wednesday we had to listen to opera records, and I really feel that exposure is what made me feel confident to pursue this kind of career. So I really feel blessed to have had parents that believed in me and wanted me to achieve my dreams. But Atlanta was very important for me because that is where the basics, that's where I learned the basics.
Where you brought up your story about having the note pinned to you, I have a different memory from school. I remember I used to be a tattletale a lot. And so, excuse me, I used to be a tattletale. So I remember this teacher, she had a tattletale. It was a long piece of yarn. You could do this now because you wouldn't have a job. But because basically the tattletale, she would pin a long piece of yarn to the back of your pants, and you had to wear that thing around all day long to denote that you were a tattletale. So that wasn't a good pinning ceremony for me. So that made me think about that. So I want to go on. I just had to put that in there because it brought
of course.
So I want to continue when you were talking about Atlanta and how it really formed the foundation. Do you remember like your first music teacher that really fostered that in your mind as far as your interest in music?
Yeah, actually, his name was Doug Bowers, and he was well, not exactly music teacher, but he was the choir director at our church, Moreland Avenue Baptist Church. And he was teaching us about breath control. And I mean, we were little tiny children. And so, and he was teaching us that music and notes were our friends, and to familiarize ourselves with key signatures and time signatures and all of that. So that's how I grew up, in that kind of world where my vocabulary was all musical. And my mother said that I sang before I talked. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I guess I was making little noises. But also, I have to say that Atlanta was also important to me because I sang at the closing ceremonies. I sang the Olympic hymn of the closing ceremonies in 1996 of the Atlanta Olympics. And for me, that was an incredible thing to go into that stadium, which I had seen for years, just driving by, and never really went to for sports events or anything. But I remember I walked in and I saw the Olympic flame and I started to tear up. And then I was saying, no, don't do that. Don't do that, Jenny. You've got to sing. It's going to be fine. And I was thinking, wow, how incredible to be from Atlanta and then have them ask me to represent the town in the Olympics. So I just had to throw that one in there because for me, that was quite the highlight.
Yes, and because a lot of times, you know, and not to get religious, but you know, a lot of people use this expression, you know, often a prophet is without honor in their own hometown. So it's certainly a full circle moment for you to be received back in the very place that nurtured you. So that is quite amazing. Now, of course, Atlanta formed that foundation. Now I want to move ahead a little bit, but before I do that, you know, you mentioned your teacher who is very important, and so I just can't say enough about the teachers who mentor us and mentor so many of us in this field and even other fields. So I'm gonna tell you, make a connection with you from my teacher. So I had a mentor as well, a choir director. His name was Jim Peak, and he's still living and still active and so forth. But he used to give me disc all the time. And he gave me this disc of excerpts from Julius Caesar, Handel. And this is the one that you're performing on the
Harmonia
Mundi.
with
Yes.
René
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes. And so Derek Lee Reagan is on that disc. But the thing about it is, I first knew about you because you know how when you're in high school, they would have all of these announcements about graduate school programs or music programs. And of course, Westminster was on the board. And they often used a picture of you as the person, as the prestigious alumna of the school.
Oh,
So
how
that's
nice.
how I was really introduced to you in connection with that advertisement in tandem with that recording. And then another facet of that was when I saw this name, Derek Lee Reagan. So I'm going to come back to all of that, but I just wanted to show you how your presence has definitely been a part of my trajectory and interest
Oh,
in this. I wanted to
thank
thank
you
you.
for saying that, Patrick. And I
Yeah.
just have to say that Derek Lee Reagan, the countertenor, one of my dearest, oldest, fantastic friends. I just really adore him and love him.
Wow. So we're definitely gonna come back. And every time, and it's a mutual feeling because every time I mention you, it's like I can feel the gushing like
Oh,
come.
really? That's great.
So I want to talk to you. We talked about Atlanta, we talked about teachers and mentors and things like that. How did you know? Okay, you're finished high school. Now you want to go to college. How did you know you wanted to major in music? And how did the opera bug or the opera interest really blossom?
Well, like I said, when I was 10, we went to the Met on tour. It was, the Met had come to Atlanta on tour. It was La Traviata. And I remember that the lights went down and the conductor came out and they started to sing. And I mean, it just bit me then. The bug just bit me. I said, that's what I want to do. I want to be on stage and I want to sing. And it never went away. And my mom said later, she just hoped that my voice would develop into an operatic sounding voice and that I would be able to do that. And of course, my father was always saying, oh, you can do anything you want, you know, you can be whatever you want to be. And I started doing little competitions. When I was 12, I did a little competition to be in an all-state soloist, and I won that. And I got to work with Robert Shaw
Ooh.
and the Atlanta Symphony. And then I was just doing things like that. But my choir director at the time, Walter Michels, he had gone to Westminster Choir College. So he had said, why don't you go to their vocal camp? And so I did, and I fell in love with it. And I had done auditions for Manhattan School of Music, and I had considered going to Juilliard and all of these big places. But Patrick, you have to know, I was a little Southern girl, was just as innocent as could be. I didn't know anything about the world. So my parents, I think, were afraid to let me go to the Big Apple, to New York and get all swallowed up. So they sent me to New Jersey instead to Westminster Choir College. And I'm really glad they did. It was one of the best places for me. And I got a degree in vocal performance, and the rest is history, I guess.
As I shared with you before we got on live, one of my dear friends, Timothy Hall, he said, for me to give you greetings to his Westminster.
Love him.
And Tim is a fabulous organist, and I followed him, and he's kind of a great mentor to me. So I wanted to make sure I get that acknowledgement.
That's wonderful.
So, thank you. So I want to go even further, because I do want to treat the audience to you singing. I know a lot of times singers don't like to hear themselves singing, but we all know
depends on what it is.
well, I'm gonna make another connection. So remember I mentioned the fact that I got that disc of the Handel excerpts from Julius Caesar, and the first aria, well, it might not be the first aria on the disc, but the piece that really enraptured me with your voice was Vatacito.
That's as
and so even though this clip, and I'm not gonna play all of it because sometimes you play full excerpts and your video gets snatched down, so I'm gonna be careful, but I do want to play a little bit of this. And if you can all bear with me for a second as I share my screen, hopefully it because when you're doing these virtual presentations, sometimes it doesn't go like you plan.
I understand. I think you're doing great.
Thank you, but I think we're good. And So I just wanted to play an excerpt of that. And this leads me into another topic. First of all, what really drew me into your voice was the lush sound, the resonance, and particularly the lower register. And a lot of times when you're speaking about early music, of course, people want to more often use countertenors and things like that. So I want to know, were you ever greeted with any well, not necessarily lost opportunities, but a lot of times when people are trying to balance whether they want a countertenor voice versus mezzo voice, but your voice to me is like the total package. So anyway, if I just want to know, did you ever have any kind of conflicts in that regard?
Well, that's a good question. And yeah, I guess I did. But I I remember when I was trying to convince René Jacobs to let me do this role. And he said, no, 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 you'll do Sesto. And I said, no, I think I could be a great Julius Caesar. And he says, no, no, not at all. Sesto. That's end of discussion. I said, no, I'm going to come to your house and I'm going to sing the arias for you. And then you tell me. And so I learned not all 9 da capo arias, but I learned the Vatacito, I learned the Empiorirò tu sei, a lot of the coloratura stuff, Ad Lampo dell'Armi, and I came and I sang it for him, and that's what convinced him. But I had to work really, really hard to get it, because he was thinking of a completely different type of voice, a countertenor voice, or even a bass, I mean, he was thinking, he wasn't thinking of me at all. And so I knew that that was the role for me. You know how you just get something, it in your heart, and you can do it, and you're not afraid at all, And so it was like I was supposed to do it. So I went and I auditioned for him, and then he was convinced. But I had to work hard. Yeah, and I'm sure that, and I remember, was it Rake's Progress or something, where I was supposed to do Baba the Turk, and then they decided they wanted a countertenor. And you know what? I'm fine with that. I love countertenors. But I mean, if you want Jennifer Larmore, you ask for Jennifer Larmore. But if you don't, that's okay. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask that because I know sometimes that could be a discussion, particularly in early music, and now it's really more of a niche arena, even more so than it was probably when you made this particular recording. So thank you.
Well, Patrick, but when I made that recording, I have to tell you that at the time, the voices were a little less full. The voices were maybe a little more white or less vibrato or whatever. So I had to fight really hard to say, yes, I'm a bigger voice that can sing coloratura. So, give me a chance. And they did. And so I was very happy about that.
That's wonderful. I love when people are flexible and just really accept people for their individual gifts. So thank you for being open to that question. I want to move all the way ahead because something that always intrigued me with opera singers when they get the opportunity to write a memoir or a book or anything like that. So talk to me or the audience who may be unfamiliar with your book, Una Voce.
Okay, well, it came about because I've been teaching for over 35 years, but privately. And well, now I went into a fantastic position in Seoul, South Korea at the Music College of Seoul National University, which is a beautiful overlapping in my current singing career with my current teaching career, but that's another topic. But the book came about because I've been teaching for so long and I was doing so many master classes. And I think that one of the most important moments in any masterclass is the question and answer period. And there were so many questions that these young singers had, and some of them just kind of break your heart, and you think, oh God, I've got to help them. I've got to let them know. I've got to maybe help them shave off 5 years of real struggle by telling them all the awful problems that I had, and all the things that happened to me, to show them that, yeah, you can still have a great career. And I think that's what people like the most about the book, is that, yeah, I give a lot of advice just from my own point of view. Of course, we have to keep that in the forefront. But I'm also a person who's been out there doing it for a million years, it feels like. And so I have a lot to say and a lot to share. And so I feel like it's almost a duty to get it out there. And I wrote it in between rehearsals in cabs and buses and trains. I mean, it just came out so fast because there is a lot to tell. And I think that, like I said, the thing that people like almost the most about this book is the fact that I did have so much adversity and so many things went wrong. But my mother always said, it's not what happens to you. Basically, it's how you handle what happens to you in getting happiness back.
You know, when I was reading up on the book, the thing that caught me, I guess, was the tagline, because it mentioned all the things that you had experienced or you talk about: jealousy, the casting couch, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we won't get into all of that. But, you know, this industry, as much as it is beautiful, it definitely is a dog eat in terms of the injury. So if you could think about an instance that you touch on the book, you don't have to call names or anything, but what was a kind of rough experience? Maybe like, I would say maybe jealousy.
I think I'm going to wait until I'm completely through with my career to do my tell-all.
But hopefully you'll give me the exclusive.
Yeah, you wait. You'll have a lot of good stories to tell in a few years. No, but I don't. I mean, I'm not just being cagey about it. I don't really remember anything really horrible. There are a few things. There was a rival record company that always was, they were afraid of me, I think, and they were always turning people away from my record signings and trying to promote their own person. And that to me was kind of underhanded, but it didn't hurt me. Okay. I went on to do the best I could do in my career. And I feel like it's been good. It was and is quite good. So, I mean, of course, we had the Me Too movement and the casting couch. I think that is a good chapter for people to read. It's very, very difficult to say that I am going to focus on things like that, because that's, for the book, I'm trying to put a real positive spin, not toxic positivity, not that, but realistic positivity is what I'm talking about, trying to find some good out of the things that happen. I think that every person, whatever happens to them, it stems from every decision that they make. And the book talks a lot about what kind of decisions that we can make as artists when we have to deal with crazy directors or conductors that won't go our tempo. In fact, I just had one of my wonderful students was in the Belvedere competition in the finals. And he had the rehearsal and he said, oh, golly, they're going so slowly. I can't sing this aria that slow. And I said, but have you spoken respectfully with the conductor away from the orchestra, not in front of his orchestra, but just respectfully face to face? And he said, yes. And he said, I have to go his tempo. I said, okay. At this point, if you have to go his tempo, then you have to go his tempo, but you find a way to make it work and enjoy it at the same time. And he did, and it was fantastic. Wow. So as far as this book is concerned, it's showing, I did have a lot of adversity, but it shows different ways that people can get through it and get through it in a way that it benefits you. And now I'm writing the second book, which a lot of people say it should be called Poco Fa, but I doubt that's what it's going to be. But I really want people to, if you can, if they can write into your website or whatever, or to your Facebook and say what they want me to write about. Okay, that would be very wonderful to have young singers or old singers or anybody to really tell me what it is that they're thinking about these days and what they want me to talk about, if they're even interested in what I have to say.
They are. And so I wanted to let everyone viewing and listening the fact that the book is still available on Amazon.com. So make sure that you access it. And please email those questions to me at patrickdmccoy@patrickdmccoy.com and just put in the subject line Larmore. And that way, if you have specific things that you want her to write about, you might see your thoughts in her next book.
That's right.
No, thank you, Jennifer, for giving us that opportunity.
Thank you, Patrick.
I want to go back, and I feel like I can hold you here all day. I want to go back because, of course, I played you singing the aria from Guido Cesare by Handel, but I want to talk because I know that your opera adoring public want to hear you, I'm sure, expound a little bit more about your operatic roles and things like that. So I focused on Handel because most people who know me, Handel is my favorite composer.
Me too. Desert Island composer. Yeah.
So I wanted to know if you would be willing to talk about some of the roles that you've sung that really resonated with you throughout your career.
Yeah, well, starting with the Giulio Cesare, that was something that it taught me a lot also. It taught me the fact that I've done over 25 pants roles now as a mezzo-soprano. And if there are any other singers that are doing the sopranos or mezzos doing pants roles, I would say, don't think of it as a physical thing. It's not the physicality of the role that matters as much as digging deep inside the words for the drama and knowing what the world of the composer was like, knowing what the world of your character was like, really doing your homework. Because then with Giulio Cesare, for example, I always thought of authority or power, and immediately my voice takes on a different color. My shoulders go back. I become him simply because I'm thinking of the wonderful emotions that he brings out. Okay. And that how the music is written. Now you take a role like Carmen, for example. It's written by a genius, Bizet, but Carmen is written like French art song. So, and you think, what would make a man like Don José, a real military man, give up his entire life and family and everything for a vulgar woman that he could just take to a hotel for a few hours? I don't think that you would sing or play her in that way. She's Spanish. She has the earth in her voice. She has the sun. She has everything that you think of when you think of a woman like that, but I don't think she was a vulgar woman that would like pick up her skirt with her teeth. But of course, that's just my opinion. Romeo in Capuletti e di Montecchi. For me, that was a revelation to do sword play, to realize that the sword is a part of my arm. It was an incredible physical role to do. And bel canto. One of the most incredible bel canto things for a mezzo to sing is Romeo. Of course, Rosina is the role that I did over 650 times, and Una Voce 1 billion times, and the aria. And Rosina is the role that I think I made my debut at every major company with. I think I made my debut. Somebody listening might know that if I'm telling the wrong thing, but
put it in the comments.
Yeah, I debuted at Deutsche Oper Berlin with that. I debuted at Covent Garden with that, at the Met, at Paris Opera, all over the world. I debuted with that role because I knew that was the role I could ace. I knew I could walk on stage and feel like so comfortable and have no questions. I had all the answers when it came to her, so I was totally relaxed. And I remember when I made my debut at the Met, there was this big buzz because Renee Fleming and I had done Così fan tutte together in Geneva. And we were just little nobodies at that point, but we were singing real well. And Renee came back to New York and she told Eve Queller of the Opera Orchestra of New York, you have to hire this girl. She's really good. And so Eve didn't know anything about me, but just because Renee told her to hire me, she hired me. And that was for the Capuletti. That was for the Romeo. And then that night, the people from the Met came to hear me because there had been a buzz. And that's the night they offered me Rosina at the Met. And so when I came out for the first recitative, everybody started to applaud and they applauded forever. And I tell you, after that, I didn't care what happened. I was so happy. I was just singing straight from my heart and soul. So that is a role, of course, all the Rossini, Papa Rossini's been the best for me.
Wow. Well, you have provided the perfect segue because the next clip I'm going to play is the Hallmark aria. So I'm going to share it now. So let's.
Oh dear, which recording are you playing?
Oh, well, I guess it's going to be the little surprise. Let's see.
Oh dear.
It's great. Trust me.
I hope it's okay.
Yes. So let me get out of this. Uh-oh.
I like my hair in that picture.
If you all would bear with me 1 second, and I'm gonna do this, and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna go back to the share now. Hopefully this is right. Oh, it is.
Good for you. You're so good with all this.
I'm trying. So I
Oh.
think we'll enjoy this. I love this.
The Dario Fo.
So that is the title song of your next book. Let me ask you a question. Of course, you could tell I keep toggling back or referring back to Handel, but in the Handel, there's a different type of coloratura and ornamentation, all that type of thing. And then you leave the Baroque and now you're preparing Rossini. How do you approach the delivery, even though it has that coloratura? What are some of the things that make them both uniquely different when you perform these two composers, Handel versus Rossini?
Well, I find the Handel coloratura very singable. I mean, that and Vivaldi also, very, very singable, very easy to do. And ornamentation, when you put the ornaments in, it's also, it fits very well. If you make ornaments that work for your voice, and also that express what the character is trying to say with the text. That's very important. Rossini, in order to sing Rossini, you've got to have that understanding of the energy, how to use your energy all the way through. And coloratura isn't just something that's a little melisma here and a little melisma there. No, it is a long line of melisma all the way through an aria. And that's the way the mind has to think of it. Otherwise, it gets too hard. If you're just doing a diddle-diddle here and a diddle-diddle, you need to think of it in a different way. Train your brain to think of it in a way that you can make phrases out of it. And I think that to sing Rosina in particular, you've got to have that sunlight in the voice, and you've got to have sunny Spain in there, and you've got to have the energy that goes along with that, and the kind of coloratura and staccati that are inside of a legato line. And that is always a challenge and so much fun to do. With that, with La Cenerentola, with Bianca Faliero, with any of the Rossini. And also Handel, but it doesn't have as much, you don't have as much of that staccato inside the legato as you do in Rossini.
Wow, thank you so much. And the reason I asked that question, because each composer, even though there are characteristics that are similar, you still have to approach them in such a different way. So even though you might have what people might call coloratura, or the fast moving parts and the ornamentation, is such a different approach. So thank you. And that's an important part, that you really have to know your periods, know your repertoire, and you definitely do. So you go, girl.
Thank you.
I know it's getting a little bit late there for you. So again, Jennifer, thank you so much for just giving me this chat. And I'm so happy. As we wrap up our time together, I know we kind of talked about what you talked about in your book for young singers and things of that nature. But since you have a captive audience now, if you had something that you would want to share with an aspiring singer, or even a mid-career singer, what is something that you would want people to take away from what you have done in your career as an opera singer?
Well, the first thing I'd like to say is, when you do these competitions or auditions and things like that, please don't look at it like it's life and death. There's so many other more important things happening in the world, than if you don't get this audition, or if you don't sing well, or whatever. Then, and I know that it feels that way when you don't get a job that you auditioned for, or you don't win a prize in a competition. I never won that many prizes, and I still had a great career, and it's still going on. So I feel like I've done something right as far as, keeping things in perspective. I guess the advice I'm saying on that subject is to try and keep things in perspective. And also, you can have a career and still be who you are, and not have to be a big diva. I don't think we really have time anymore for that kind of behavior. And I think that we're so lucky to get to do this. I know that I'm at the age where I'm supposed to be burned out, right? Well, I don't feel burned out at all as far as my career is concerned. Of course, your dreams change as you go along, and other opportunities and other doors open. Be able to receive those opportunities. Keep your mind open, keep your heart open, be kind to people if you can, but protect yourself as you go along. Okay. And how do we do that? You need to know who you are as an artist. Okay. You need to know what it is that's the most important thing to you. And also, you have to remember, you're the one you go to sleep with at night. You're the one that has to, when you wake up during the night for whatever reason, and it's just you and the darkness, you've got to be able to say, I did something good today. I had a good day. I sang well, or I sang the best I could. And you know what? If you're singing the best you can, that's all anybody can ever ask from you, okay? So it's not a matter of life and death. It's a beautiful job. It's a beautiful way of life. We say in France, a mode de vie, so don't let it take you over, but you be in control and make good decisions.
Jennifer, Thank you so much. It has been an honor to have you on Across the Arts and as a part of this installment of the Opera Diva series. Again, it's been a joy, a long time coming. So first of all, again, I want to say thank you to you. And I want the listeners or the people viewing the broadcast, if you want to follow Jennifer, you can go to her website, jenniferlarmore.net. And she also has a presence on Facebook now. Jennifer and I were kind of talking about this. Everyone has to take a step back from Facebook and social media, but she does have a very robust group. It's called Jennifer Larmore, and all of her fans are on there. So you can definitely keep abreast and tuned in to what she's doing. But again, Jennifer, thank you so much. Again, I am your host, Patrick D. McCoy, and you've been watching and listening to Across the Arts, the Opera Diva series with two-time Grammy Award-winning mezzo-soprano Jennifer Larmore. Our next installment will be the Maestra series, the series in which we focus on female conductors. And I'm so pleased that the next guest will be Naima Burns of Richmond, Virginia, young conductor and violist. So I'm excited about having her on the Maestra series. Again, I'm your host, Patrick D. McCoy, and you've been listening and viewing Across the Arts. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining us today.
Thank you, Pat.